So it's October 4th and we've had 2 hard frosts, so the garden is wrapping up for the year. But I had a little experience the other day that I wanted to share. I'll preface it with this. So look at all these sunflowers in the garden. We didn't plant those. Those were planted by the birds and the squirrels. We planted sunflowers a few years back and now they've just been perpetuating themselves. And the same thing is kind of happening over here with this mint. It's a really nice Kentucky kernel variety of mint, spearmint, and we had it in a pot over there a few years back, and then it escaped out into the earth, and now it's spreading out over the whole patio. So soon we'll be able to kind of walk on that and have that nice mint smell come out. And the same thing is happening with a bunch of self-seeding annuals like that calendula in the background there by the gate, or this chamomile here right at the corner, snapdragons over there, borage and dill. But that same chamomile has spread itself around all the borders of the patio, and that's been going for years now, that it just perpetuates itself from year to year. We don't have to do that. There were some carrots we left in the ground over by the little pear tree there, and they've gone to seed, and that seed is gonna fall on the ground. We've harvested some of it to reuse, but we'll have like sort of a little perennial carrot patch here. I'll zoom in on those seed heads. And the same thing is even happening with the beans back here by the cattle panel. The beans last year just got left on there, and so then they fell down to the ground and they grew back up. Actually, my wife has taken a bunch of those down now, but you can see here in the kale bed all the yellow leaves. That's all the beans. So they're going in there and providing nitrogen for the kale as it grows. Sort of these beans here, I don't remember their name, was it dragon tongue? But this is all just to say that now that the garden's been in place for 10 years, it's really taking on a life of its own. Even the sea holly perennial that has edible leaves when they're young like this has started to appear in the trail. So the trails and the patio is acting as a seed collecting mechanism that's basically acting as like a little nursery. The pathways do that with the raspberries too. They keep trying to climb out into there. And so then we harvest all of the suckers from there and spread those around, give them away. So the other day I was sitting in the garden and there was this little noise, so I looked over and there was a chickadee sitting here in the foliage underneath the apple guild, and it was sitting on top of the stem of a dead plant and eating a little bug out of the inside of that stem. And then the chickadee just flew away, out and away, and it left its droppings as it was going. And there was just this moment as I watched that, like the apples and the plants and the insects and the birds, and there was just sort of this coalescing moment that hit me. And the only way that I can explain it is kind of like, there's a big difference between looking at the back of someone's head versus looking into their eye. So both of them are looking into that person's body, but one of them is like looking at the back of their head, one's like looking into their eye, you know what I mean? Or awareness is meeting awareness. There's a sense of transmission or connection that happens with eye contact. So in that moment while I was watching the chickadee and the insect and the apple tree and the stem of the plant, it was a moment of eye contact with the ecosystem. That same sense of transmission and connection and awareness, looking at awareness, happened, but it wasn't with a particular species. It was with the sum that is more than just the parts. And it's just so beautiful. I feel so humbled and honored to participate in this little ecosystem that's sprung up in our backyard here. I know that if we walked away from the system, it would continue to perpetuate itself. Perhaps even if all the people were gone, it would spread out into the neighboring yards, and there would be a series of successions with many of these species forming a web that is able to support all of these species. Just so beautiful to see those emergent behaviors start to come out of the garden as it fulfills its own needs with its own wisdom. And I think that's really an amazing perspective to take on this whole gardening endeavor, is not so much trying to control and dictate everything that happens, but rather becoming a surfer on the wave. There's so much literal and metaphorical energy flowing through a system like this that I think the most appropriate role is to sit back and enjoy it and surf on top of it rather than trying to channel it in a particular direction. It knows how to take care of itself much better than we ever could. And it comes up with these amazing solutions and outcomes that we would have never chosen or known how to induce ourselves. Just fantastic. I love gardening.